Hello, everybody. Anime Reflux. I'm going to do my intro a little slower than usual because I feel it's symptomatic of what might be a problem with this show that we're reviewing this week. Is it might just have a bit of a pacing problem,
It sure does
you might say.
take its time.
No kidding. uh, it. So the show we're doing this week is Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works because I didn't want to watch the Dean version, and yeah, this is supposed to be the really good one. I
hmm
I haven't heard anything about the films, the Heavens Feels films, so I don't
The
know.
Heavens Feels films are great. The Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works movie, which was the original attempt at adapting this route of the original game, that was bad. It was a bad movie.
Hmm.
You think the pacing in this is bad? The pacing in that was a million times worse.
Yeah. So approximately 80% of this episode is either Rin talking to herself or her talking to Archer, and that's it.
There's a lot of setup, and I feel like trying to transition from because this came after Fate Zero, and Fate Zero brought in a lot of new fans to Fate as a franchise. So they added. So this prologue episode is, I guess, more meant to bridge the gap because Ren is a character who appears in Fate Zero, and she's not our main character necessarily, but we get to see things from her perspective. Obviously, this prologue is not in the original work; it's an adaptation of.
Yeah, because that was all from Shiro's perspective. But at the same time, trying to bridge the gap is not really my problem with it. My problem is more, wow, this is a poor adaptation, is how I'll phrase it.
How do you mean?
I have played technically a lot of visual novel over the past couple of years by playing Fate Go, which is, the entire story is told through visual novel and then occasionally fights happen.
Yeah.
I am now very familiar with how visual novel storytelling tends to go, specifically to this franchise, even. And that is a lot of very dry exposition talked at the player, so they are made to understand what's going on through basically a face talking at you and telling you all the important things. That is what they do in this episode. It is, like I say, the second Archer shows up, it is exposition for maybe half an hour of this 50-minute episode.
Quite frankly, I may just not be having the best day right now, but frankly, the exposition was enough that I got bored before I first showed up.
Yeah, you're really, really quiet, by the way, patient.
You're
I'm
really muffled, is what it sounds like.
yeah. But for those that might not have been able to catch that, he got bored of the expedition before Archer showed up, which I
Mm.
meant to go back and check when that was, like the actual time code of him actually showing up. But whoops.
I do want to say this. This episode was actually what put me off on watching the anime for the longest time.
Hmm.
Uh, and to be honest, my recommendation is if you want to watch a show, you can skip this episode.
Hmm.
You actually nothing in this is actually necessary for anybody who is either familiar with this franchise or just wants to get straight into it, because a lot of basically what episode 1 is how everything happens, but from Shiro's point of view. And a lot of this stuff ends up getting explained in more detail later anyway. So it's kind of a weird... That's why I called it a bridge, because that's the only reason I can think of why this episode exists, is a bridge between Zero and regular Fate Stay Night.
Was this episode released first for this series?
Was this episode released first? Is that what you said?
Yes, it was released first. It is, double the length of all the future episodes. And again, I went through and I watched this entire series, the entire anime, with a group of friends, or with a friend rather. We're all watching it in our separate groups and what have you. But I was watching this with a friend, and we had a lot of fun after everything that happens past this. It's like, oh yeah, we know this. And the weird thing is, because you mentioned the whole exposition. The weird thing is, for the rest of the show, and for a lot of like moments in the show, what you get is a visual storytelling, where they try to tell things through visual storytelling rather than just kind of explaining everything, because there's a ton of just writing in the visual novel.
So wait, did you just say that after this episode they switched to the much more generally effective show not tell method?
Yeah, at least for a lot of things like character motivations and how people are, and how, rather than explaining like, oh, I think this about this character, that's more shown through visual storytelling. And that was a choice they made because there's just too much to adapt. And as a result, it's kind of funny, there are people who have not been able to catch on some of that because their expectations were set for the more in-your-face exposition. And so they end up with a not quite intended view of certain characters.
Yeah, I do remember the Abridged series, which, in fairness, is probably like skewing my perspective on this episode in particular, because Abridged series are paced to be very quick, and this show is not, at least for this episode. But aside from that, I do remember that it was called Episode 0 when they adapted this, rather than Episode 1, and yeah. So yeah, I guess that's a pretty common view, that this is not really required, just sort of a side thing that you don't really need.
So there are two kinds of fans of the show: those who appreciate the first episode and those who appreciate subtlety.
Well, I mean, I feel like there is something to like about this in particular, because, as Zero said, all this material wasn't in the original original story in the game. This is all entirely new content that fleshes out Summervin's character a little bit, and her interactions with Archer that we don't see as much in the visual novel, because again, it's from Shiro's perspective. We see them together when Shiro is with them.
Yeah, from the point of view, when I was just watching the entire Fate series with a friend. We had watched Dean's Stay Night first, so we already knew what the beginning sort of bit to all of this was. So starting out and seeing it from Rin's perspective was like, oh, that's interesting. But again, it's not necessary this episode. It's if you like Rin and you kind of want to see more of that stuff, fine. But everything is in episode 1 anyway, so.
It is a little odd to think about, because I opened this out basically saying, hey, this is told the same way as a visual novel is told, all through really redundant dialogue of telling the audience everything they need to know in a very visually uninteresting way. When this wasn't in the visual novel.
No, it wasn't. This is all extra content. And I feel like it's the equivalent of a recap episode.
Kind of, yeah. Except they aren't really recapping anything.
They're recapping... This is the Holy Grail War. My father was in the last Holy Grail War. You know, that's why I say it feels like, oh, you guys watched Fate Zero. It's been like half a year. Come back for the next Fate thing. It's a sequel. It's a sequel to Fate Zero. You guys liked Fate Zero. Let's start with a character you know from that. Y'all like that Rin episode? Well, here's Rin.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's fine, I guess, for what it is. But you know, they really could have done this better, and I don't really know why they decided to implement it in such a visually uninteresting way. As here's Rin and Archer talking, and here's them talking in another scene, and here's them talking in a third scene.
I agree.
Yeah. So
I think it speaks to the fact that they had nothing to adapt for this, and so it's, well, I guess they're just talking, which you definitely could have done something better than that, but they're also trying to make it fit into several different scenes, and so it's weird. Because, you know, Rin is supposed to be in these places at these times, and some of this stuff is in the visual novel, but some of it is not. Like, you know, we know what happens when, what it looks like when Archer is first summoned. We don't know about all the conversation that happens around that afterwards. But not only does conversation happen around that afterwards, it also goes to the same room where her father was in Fate Zero, talking with his servant, who was also an Archer. And so it kind of feels like Fate Zero fan service.
And in general, I like that sort of thing. Just fill in the little in-between bits that we want to see that wouldn't generally fit in the main episode because it would disrupt the pace. But considering that I'm entering into this, unlike you two, completely unfamiliar with the Fate franchise, it doesn't do as much for me.
And there's the problem, you know?
The same way Fate Zero was kind of a jumping on point for a lot of fans, Unlimited Blade Works could quite easily have been that as well.
Yes.
Or
all you have to do is
for
start
this
with
episode.
episode 1.
Yeah.
That's kind of it. All you have to do is start with episode 1, and it is a jumping on point. But most people are going to start with the prologue and then get turned off. Not that I've seen a lot of people who have necessarily... Like, I've seen, like, Unlimited Blade Works did actually do very well. It's very popular as an anime. And that's because people are willing to go through the prologue because they saw the cool fight scenes on YouTube.
Even so, I feel like they wasted so much time on this.
Yes, I agree. I wish they would have cut the prologue, make 2 more episodes later on in the show.
I'm not even sure of that. I would just say, hey, there is so much pointless fluff in here that you just don't need. Doesn't actually add anything. Like the entire beginning segment of Rin going to school and talking with Ayako, okay, and Shinji's an asshole, okay, and then nothing for pretty much all of that. It didn't really give any necessary information. It was about 5 to 10 minutes long. I don't know why that was there.
Yeah, well, it's like in episode 1, it's like, oh, well, you hear that Tosaka turned down Shinji. They say to Shiro, and he's like, okay, sure. But it's like, well, see, guys, we filled in the blank over there. It's like, well, if you're watching the show, you didn't know there was a blank because you saw the thing and then you saw it. It doesn't have the same effect.
Mm. Yeah. So this was a thing that gives a very poor impression of the thing that they're making. Also, I watched the dub. That might have been a mistake.
Yes.
Archer was fine. Kuholen was fine. Shinji, I thought was Yuri Lowenthal for a second, but he's also fine. Ayako doesn't really matter. I don't know why she was here. She doesn't matter. Rin is terrible.
I haven't actually heard her English voice.
It's not like 90s dub flat, but it is very flat.
Oof.
Yeah.
I feel like
I think
she had a problem with voice actors. I think because they did so many adaptations that she's changed voice actresses throughout the years.
I think this one was leaning in particular on the whole she's wealthy thing, so she's very precise and well spoken and does not emote overly much. Which is, not great for a character that is actually much more animated than that. I mean, in this episode, in fairness, it's very dry exposition for almost all of it, but you can tell there are points where she's supposed to be I can't think of the word. Very excitable, very emotional. She has, a bit high strung, maybe, and she just isn't. She doesn't sell it at all.
Yeah, I found the voice actress, Mela Lee.
Never heard of her.
Yeah. Apparently, she voice acts for Tiki from Fire Emblem.
Okay.
It's probably her biggest one.
To be perfectly fair, I'm not as up on voice actors as I used to be, so I couldn't name anyone and everyone like I could say about 10 years ago.
She's
but
Hiyori in Bleach.
How the fuck did they do that to Rin then?
Yeah,
that has to be a
right?
directing thing. Holy shit.
Yeah, that's probably a directing thing.
That's disappointing. So yeah, because if the director isn't great, then oh boy, that just kind of ruins the whole thing. The director is the linchpin that you kind of need to be good, or no one is going to be particularly good. Oh well.
Yeah, I watched the sub because I just it feels like it fits after how much of the sub that I've seen in pretty much everything on Fate Go and everything. Yeah. This is a weird one because I wanted to talk about this a bit, but because there's Fate Stay Night's visual novel with 3 different routes, and all 3 of those routes have been adapted with differing amounts of success. It feels less and less like they want to do the beginning of the route in a traditional sense.
Yeah, it's the Spider-Man origin story problem. Like, okay, we know this at this point.
Yeah.
We don't want to do it again.
So for Dean, Fate Stay Night route, they do it traditional. Then they kind of try to shake it up with a Rin take on everything for Unlimited Blade Works, and then for Heaven's Feel, they just fast forward past it. It's like, you're not here for this. If you're here, you've already seen the Unlimited Blade Works and maybe Fate Stay Night, but at least Unlimited Blade Works. So we're just going to fast forward past it. You know, there's some setup, but the setup has nothing to do with, like, the stuff it normally typically does. It's more focused on Sakura. And so you kind of, as somebody who would be watching this for the first time, you're in that weird in-between spot. So, in other words, they need to adapt the original Fate Stay Night thing, but with UFO table, because, or ufotable, however you want to say it, because the Dean Stay Night one is really, really weird and bad.
Oh well. Oh yeah, we didn't do a summary. Okay, Ring goes to school, nothing happens, and then she goes home and she summons a servant. It isn't the one she wants. Oh no. He says he's not gonna follow her instructions. She says, "Nah, you gotta." And then he's like, "Yeah, okay." And then they get attacked by a dude with a spear. And then someone sees them, and spear guy goes and kills that guy. That's basically it.
Then she goes and heals him, and then she's just sitting drinking tea with Archer, and he's like, "Wait," and she's like, "Wait." Once he realizes that the guy that he thought he killed is alive, he's gonna go and try to kill him again. Okay, crap. So they run and go to try to save him, but they're intercepted by Saber, a servant that you would know if you watched Fate Zero.
Unlimited Blade Worker Bridge has just kind of ruined me for this show.
I haven't seen it, actually. Can you link me to that once this is over? I want to watch that.
It's so good. I will do that. You have to remind me on. Yeah, but it's very good.
But yeah, this is one of those weird cases where I'm just gonna say, if you haven't seen anything Fate related, skip the prologue. Just skip it. You lose nothing, except an introduction to some characters.
And if you have seen something Fate related, you can probably also still kind of skip it.
Yeah,
not really.
If you want to see Rin's perspective of how things started, and you're curious, yeah, go watch it. Otherwise, don't have to.
Recommendation: watch it at 1.25. I never say that for anything, but in this case, there are so many long, pointless pauses. Just watch it at 1.25.
It's definitely.
It'll still be kind of slow.
Ufotable is trying to like flex there. Look, we can draw backgrounds. Aren't these backgrounds great?
Not hearing you at all.
Yeah, patient. I can't even make out what you're saying. Is your mic all right?
This is really frustrating, you know?
There we go.
I'm talking exactly the same way as I was a second ago.
It's very strange, but you're actually more audible than you've ever been.
Anyway. I was going to say, I was watching it at 2 times speed, and it still felt like it dragged.
Yeah. It has pacing problems. Bad ones. But apparently that problem goes away. I don't want to watch another episode as part of this, but yeah. This is probably one of those circumstances where we can pretty safely say, yeah, totally watch this show. It's really good. But not because of the episode that we watched. It's a very strange circumstance, but there we are.
Yeah, I can vouch for the show's overall quality. It's just a bizarre choice. Let's start with this. Anyway, I rolled another number.
Yeah.
Am I coming through?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, I've got the list up.
All right, I rolled number 1.
That would be A.
Hey.
Hey. Oh man.
125.
Sorry.
120. 125. And we get 65.
65. I'm not holding a lot of hope for this title. Angel Tales.
Angel Tales, Angel Tales.
No.
Angel Tales. It's got a dub, so we can. 2005.
2005.
Goro's down on his luck. He keeps losing jobs and has little money. One day he meets a fortune teller outside of a pet store who predicts that his luck will change. It's a great fortune teller. Really on the ball. That night, 3 girls appear in his apartment claiming to be his guardian angels. Soon, a total of 12 girls appear to help him, each one a reincarnation of a deceased pet once owned by Goro, yeah.
Go
anime, your summaries.
The tag here doesn't say harem, but
on Wikipedia it says harem.
Okay.
So, few points of order. This anime actually came out in 2001. And the actual plot summary on Wikipedia is that his pets return to him as guardian angels, each desiring to be his favorite. And they also have fears from their past lives that they must overcome and must learn to live with one another. And it's the only way they will stand a chance of helping Goro turn his life around.
Okay, it doesn't sound bad, but
So, comments say it's good, and then the next comment says, "Is it a good anime?" Response: "So, are you done watching? Is it good?" Response: "Dunno, lol." Response: "So, did you watch it yet?" "Yes, I did, but I feel like it wasn't worth. That took a long time to get to." Okay, so some people think it's good, other people,
That's the case with everything ever.
Yeah, it's also the only 2 responses on the main show page. On the actual episode, it's cringy, apparently. So, Okay.
Michelle Ruff voices in English the reincarnation of Goro's pet goldfish.
Who's Michelle Ruff?
Voice actor of Rukia in Bleach, Yuki in Haruhi Suzumiya, Yoko Littner from Gurren Lagann, Jill in Resident Evil.
Nice.
This must have been one of her earlier roles.
I kind of really want to watch this just for her doing a goldfish.
Angel Tales.
Yeah, that's a pun because tale and fairy tale.
Yeah,
pun.
Yeah.
Like the show Fairy Tale, like it's the tale and
yes.
tale. Yeah. Okay.
This feels like the art feels like early 2000s. Which again, it is early 2000s DeviantArt anime OC.
Even so, yeah. I'm just saying this for the record since I'm around the detail. I'm saving it for something a lot more blatantly fan service.
So, apparently the show, like the regular version of the show was 2005, and the dub is 2001. I don't know how...
What?
Well, the first episode is 2001, according to Wikipedia.
Oh, okay.
So whatever you're looking at is just probably incorrect.
Yeah, the show page, the sub page is wrong. Cool. Okay. So yeah. This is... I hope this is funny. I'll give it... That's my bar on this one. I want to laugh while watching this. So, if it can make me laugh at least once, I'll call it a success.
If they're going with, like, these are deceased pets, I feel like there's a lot of potential in the writing there.
I agree.
Yeah, it does mention, hey, they have fears that they need to get over. You have to imagine it's based on how they died.
Yes.
There is a lot of potential for a good show there.
So, I'll give it a shot. You know? Worst case scenario, it's just generic harem stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so Angel Tales. I hope it's good. We have been surprised before many times. So, alright. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
I wonder if one of those pets is a...
No.